Welcome back. So the material we have today is a really detailed defense of Charlie Kirk's head of security, Brian Harpole. It uses clips from his interview to, try and debunk the conspiracy theories around the assassination attempt.
And it really goes for it. I mean, what jumps out is just how fast and specific the rebuttals are.
Yeah.
It dives right into these very controversial claims, and it uses Harpole's own words, his expertise, to counter them. That responsiveness, that's a huge strength.
It is, absolutely. But to really make that defense land, to make it as powerful as it could be, we need to talk about the foundation it's built on.
Okay.
Because the crucial, high-stakes defense of the security team's actions is, I think, frequently undercut by the jarring inclusion of highly personal, tangential stories and misplaced commercial endorsements.
Right. That's a huge issue of momentum and trust, really.
Exactly.
Because when it's focused on the expert testimony, it is absolutely riveting. You have Harpole describing
the immediacy of,
shoving his hand in the wound, tasting the blood, that whole calculated 15 to 16-second extraction, the exfil.
That's pure professional intensity.
It is, but that feeling, that tension, it just hits a brick wall because of these other detours.
And it's not a small interruption either. I mean, I was genuinely shocked that the integrated Shinergy Black Friday sale ad,
the 30% off one?
Yeah, 30% off subscription plans. It was dropped right into the middle of a segment that was trying to scientifically justify the wound. Exactly. Comparing a .306 wound to MLK's. The judgment there is it's baffling.
It completely shatters the tone. You're asking the listener to engage on this, serious forensic level?
Right.
You're talking about ballistics, life or death choices, and then, bam, hydration sales.
It's whiplash. It just cheapens everything that came before it.
And it's not just the ads. You mentioned the personal tangents.
Well, yeah, and that's maybe even worse. The host goes on this very long, very emotional anecdote about a car accident victim.
I remember this part, checking the pulse of the crushed man.
The screaming woman, finding the photo of the kids in the dead man's wallet, the psychological weight of keeping it.
And look, the intent there is clear. It's to show the emotional toll of this kind of work.
Of course. But the focus is so extended, so detailed, that it pulls you completely out of the current story, which is about Harpole's team.
The listener is there for one reason, to understand how Harpole's team handled this specific attack.
Right.
Spending minutes on a totally separate, traumatic event, it just shifts the focus. The argument loses its sharpness.
So structurally, what has to happen is just a full segregation of the material.
Based on its purpose.
Exactly. You have to let the technical defense and the expert analysis flow. Uninterrupted. Treat Harpole's facts like they're, sacred ground.
And everything else?
All the promotional stuff, all the unrelated personal stories, they need to be moved into their own distinct segments.
Okay, so let's be concrete. That Shinergy ad.
Move it. Put it at the very, very end of the analysis. Or, if you have to have it in the middle, create a hard break, a little sound effect. And now, a word from our sponsor.
But never, ever drop it in the middle of a forensic comparison to MLK.
Never. And that story about the car accident?
The wallet, the head hanging out.
It needs to be condensed, drastically, or maybe just cut. If you want to make that point about emotional stress, you can do it in one sentence.
Something like, the psychological impact is immense, as anyone in this line of work knows.
Perfect. Quick, high level, and then you move on. You keep the focus laser sharp on Harpole's team.
Do that, and the gravity of his testimony is just going to feel so much heavier.
Okay, let's move on to the second point, which is maybe a little more subtle. It's about the angle and originality, and this idea of conflicting voices of authority. So the whole piece is designed to leverage Brian Harpole's credentials, right? He's the expert.
He is the expert.
But the host keeps interjecting with these very detailed, speculative explanations of their own, and it inadvertently creates two competing authorities.
And this is where you can start to lose listener trust, I think.
How so?
Well, Harpole is presented as the guy on the scene, the source of truth, but then the host will step in right before or right after he speaks and give their own rationale for why officials did something.
We see that really clearly with the discussion about the university paving over the crime scene.
Right, which they did almost immediately.
And Harpole is clearly frustrated by this. He's challenging it. He's saying, I want the FOIA requests. I want the budget plans, because he questions why it was done so quickly. That's his point.
But isn't the host just trying to add some context there? I mean, they jump in and talk about the biohazard risk, cleaning blood off grass, the aesthetics of it all.
It seems helpful on the surface, but think about what it actually does. It undermines Harpole's entire point.
How?
The host is basically solving the problem for the university before Harpole can even finish framing why it's a problem. Harpole's issue isn't biohazards, it's the lack of transparency, the suspicious speed.
I see. So when the host offers this other perfectly logical reason for the cleanup,
It dulls the edge of Harpole's challenge. It makes Harpole sound a little unreasonable, and it almost makes the hosts sound like they're defending the university, not the expert they're supposed to be championing.
okay, that's a very sharp distinction. The host is using speculative context to shut down the expert's frustration, not to amplify it.
And it happens again. The exact same dynamic plays out with the FBI not releasing the autopsy detail.
Right. Harpole is understandably frustrated. He wants that info out there, the fragmentation, the hit on the C6 vertebra, to shut down the conspiracy theories.
And then what happened? The host immediately follows with this long, detailed defense of the FBI's position.
Arguing that, they have to withhold information to find other shooters, or to avoid tipping people off before a trial.
And that defense, while it might be legally sound, it directly contradicts the argument Harpole is making.
Which is about the immediate need for his team to be publicly exonerated.
Exactly. So it positions the host as the ultimate authority on how investigation should work, even above the guy who is actually on the scene.
So the material needs a much clearer hierarchy of expertise.
Yes, Harpole is the primary source. His account is fact. It's central. The host's job should be to validate his facts, or maybe to explain their significance.
But not to provide competing theories on investigative procedure.
Exactly not. So, for a concrete fix, that crime scene cleanup segment, reframe it completely around Harpole's challenge.
So focus on the demand for the FOIA request.
Yes, and use the host's voice to explain why that demand is so important for accountability. Reinforce Harpole. Don't provide an alternative theory like the biohazard one.
Okay, and for the autopsy info?
Instead of that long defense of the FBI, just highlight the tension. That's the real story.
The tension between the security team's need for vindication and the legal process's need for secrecy.
Precisely. That conflict is compelling on its own, and it keeps Harpole's perspective front and center.
Which allows the audience to trust him without interference?
Exactly.
Okay, so that brings us to the third big point, which is about tone and style. I mean, this piece uses an extremely aggressive, very personal tone. It's full of dismissive insults aimed at, unnamed critics.
Coward.
Right, and the intention is, righteous anger at misinformation. But the result is that the whole thing just sounds defensive. It sounds angry, not confident.
And if your goal is to prove professionalism and competence with facts,
Like Harpole's credentials, the medical response timeline, the reason for grabbing the SD card.
then the facts should be enough. They should speak for themselves. The second you resort to name-calling, a skeptical listener starts to question everything.
They think, well, why do you need to insult people if your evidence is so solid?
It creates this friction. It makes the argument feel less about cool, collected confidence and more about just anger.
So the suggestion here is pretty simple then.
It is. You have to replace all of those broad, hostile generalizations with focused, fact-based refutation.
Let the logic do the work.
Trust the evidence. The facts here are powerful enough on their own. You don't need to call someone idiotic to make your point.
And there's a perfect place to put this into practice. The part about the AV team member, Tara, who took the SD card.
Right now, that section is just full of emotional appeals and insults.
It is. So instead, you could just lead directly with the logical financial defense.
Lay out the proceed. The AV team is responsible for what? Hundreds of thousands of dollars of gear?
Of course they are. And that footage has to be secured immediately to prevent theft, to prevent it from being copied.
It's a contractual obligation. It's a financial imperative.
You emphasize the line, no Charlie Kirk, there's no job. For the AV team, that logical argument about protecting corporate assets is so much more powerful than just yelling at people online.
So much more compelling. And you can do the same thing when defending against the really wild claims.
The Mossad stuff.
The Mossad, extreme political party sabotage, just present Harpole's factual denial, cleanly.
He traveled to 39 countries, never Israel. He took an oath to his coworkers.
Those are facts. They stand on their own. And honestly, the single strongest piece of evidence in the whole piece is the financial one.
That the team is paid too well to have a motive?
Exact. Millions in contracts, guys making $20,000 a month, traveling 200 days a year. That financial reality is the best rebuttal to any conspiracy theory.
And it requires zero personal insults to be devastatingly effective.
Zero.
The material here is so strong, it's so specific. If you just refine the structure and dial back that tone, this could go from being a passionate defense to, like, a definitive, unassailable document.
So, to just quickly summarize the core feedback.
Go for it.
First, focus the structure. Be ruthless. Get rid of the irrelevant tangents, move the promotional stuff, and let the technical defense have its own space.
Maintain that momentum.
Second, clarify the hierarchy of expertise. Harpole is the expert. His testimony is primary. The host is there to validate, not to speculate.
And third?
Temper the tone. Let the objective evidence, the financial logic, the procedural defense, do the talking. That will allow it to resonate with a much broader, more skeptical audience.
The strengths are all there. I mean, the rebuttal of specific claims, that MLK 3006 analogy, the documentation of the 15-second response time, it's all incredibly strong.
It is.
Just make these few refinements to the structure and tone, and the work will achieve maximum credibility.
We really look forward to reviewing the improved material in a follow-up session once you've had a chance to implement these changes. Thanks for joining us for this critique.